My first example is my game against Grandmaster Alexander Ivanov from the 1994 Eastern Class Championships. I am white, and I started with d4. He played g6, which indicates a desire to play the Pirc or modern defense, and I simply develop, try to take as much of the center as possible, as you can see. And Ivanov makes an excessive number of pawn moves here with b5 and now a5, threatening to trap my bishop, so naturally I make room for the bishop with a3, and now he starts to pay attention to development and control of the center again with d6. Queen f3 threatens mate immediately on f7, and of course Ivanov prevents it with e6, and I continue my development. Now he takes the diagonal from a6. The black bishop on a6 attacks the knight on e2 indirectly, and the bishop has some influence on the a6 f1 diagonal. White continues, bishop e3, knight d7, and now queen g3. And the white queen has an influence here on the d6 square. Black continues with d5, and notice that black has still made a large abundance of pawn moves. So I felt it was appropriate for me to move my bishop again and attack the black queen. Ivanov finally develops his king knight, but into a pinned position. And now I felt that with my lead in development and with the large number of pawn moves and holes that exist in black's position, it would be appropriate to initiate a sacrifice. And that started with the exchanges on d5 and the move bishop takes d5. Now, if e takes d5 in this position, then knight takes d5, and I have a strong pin on e7 from my bishop, which hits that square, and with support from my knight. Black would be in big trouble because of these dual threats on e7 and also white's threat on c7 to fork the black king and rook. Hence, Ivanov played the move f6 instead of taking my bishop on d5. And I continued now with a pure piece sacrifice by playing bishop e6, f takes g5, knight e4. And the idea is that the black king is unable to castle. And the whole point of this example, that the black king is now caught in the center under the influence of the light-squared white bishop on e6. And that bishop is very powerful, and black has to somehow eliminate that bishop right away, which Ivanov did by playing knight f5, attacking my queen. But now I have other options because my threat was to play knight d6 check, and I renew that threat by removing the knight on f5, and now knight d6 check happens. Let's assess momentarily what's happened so far. White has gained a pawn and only a check against the black king, but we can see that white's likely to win another pawn, namely the black pawn on f5, which is hanging to the white knight, and the black king is now going to lose his castling privileges. So Ivanov plays king f8, and I was originally going to just play knight takes f5, and that would be a fairly normal move, but I don't really have clear compensation for my piece. It just would be a little bit interesting with knight takes f5. Instead here, I found the kind of pawn lever that sets this game apart from others and gives me long-term continuing play against the black king. I think it must have come as a rather strong and unexpected surprise with h4. This destroys black's pawn duo in shielding his king, and now black will have difficulty finding a secure position for his king. So Ivanov tries to close things up with g4. Had he played f4 in this position, and this is a new variation, then I would play queen to f3, attacking the pawn on c6, and still breaking up black's pawns on the king's side with the attack on the pawn on g5, and the little mini chain which that pawn has on the king's side, defending his king. So Ivanov elected instead, after h4, to play g4. And here I'd simply played knight takes f5. So now I have two pawns for the piece being one of black's bishops that you can count as an extra piece, and the g-pawn on g4 is under fire, and still the black king is not secure. So Ivanov played the natural knight f6, and I secured my king with castles. Play continued queen d7, and now I had considered the move f3, but that move isn't really quite sound, and black can play an answer like b4 in answer to f3. No need for white to sacrifice more material, and instead, after queen d7, I played queen f4. Now black continued with h5, trying to secure his kingside pawns, and I simply added some fuel to the flame by playing knight on e3 to g3. My knights are menacing on the king's side, and the question is, where is black's counterplay? White is still down a piece, but white has a pretty nice looking position. So he tries knight d5. I return with queen d2. And what I would hope viewers will concentrate on throughout this example are the role and use of pawns, the roles of pawns and their use throughout this game. So knight d5 was played, and now b4 is played by Ivanov, attacking my rook with his bishop from a6, threatening my rook on f1. So naturally, I move my rook to e1, and the problem for him is, although he has activated the bishop on a6, he has also allowed me to open the a file for my rook on a1. So play continues, bishop f6, a takes b4, and Ivanov doesn't want to take with his knight because then my c-pawn will be truly free to advance, so he takes with his a-pawn. However, now his bishop is pinned on a6, and I can continue with a quiet move like rook a5. And as is Ivanov's wont in a number of our games, he's drifting into serious time trouble. Even though this was a slow time control, he's running out of time trying to defend the position, and my threats are starting to mount. So I'm threatening to double in this position and maybe to play c4 as well. Pawn from c2 to c4. So black plays bishop to b7, rook takes a8 check, bishop takes a8, and I get in c4. Of course, he takes en passant. I recapture, b takes c3, and he plays rook h7. And now I indeed get in my move c4. And this is in effect saying that my one extra pawn is almost worth a piece. I mean, that's all I have on the queen side is one extra pawn. And on the king side, I also have an extra pawn, but I'm not making much use of it. It's all about the position of the pieces and the pawns. And as you can see, black's bishop on a8 isn't doing much. And black's position is awkwardly coordinated, or really uncoordinated. So after c4, he plays knight c7, and of course I play rook b1. I'm going to come in the back door, and I'm threatening to play rook from b1 to b8. So white threatens rook b8 check, the black king tries to escape with king f7. I play rook b8 anyway, and now my rook is in the heart of black's position, controlling the entire 8th rank. And black doesn't want to trade rooks because then his king would be entirely exposed to my queen, which could get into h6. For example, if he plays rook h8 now, white would continue rook takes h8, bishop takes h8, queen to h6, with a very strong attack on the bishop, on the h-pawn, and the general area of the black king. So instead, after rook b8, Ivanov played queen e6. And here I found the nice move, rook to c8. Because he can't take the rook, I fork him with knight to d6 check if he takes the rook. So he played king to g6. But this is a classic case of he can run, but he can't hide, because I played queen d3. And now I'm threatening a big discovery of my queen on the black king by moving my knight on f5. So Ivanov played rook d7. He had no place to go. Played knight double check, discovered check to e7, king f7, queen h7 check, and you can see that the black king is nearly mated here. Bishop g7, knight on e to f5, queen to g6, and Ivanov, in time trouble, resigned now, not having to see my next move, which would have been rook to f8 check, winning his queen, because his king is overloaded, having to defend his queen and the f8 square. And of course the bishop on g7 is also pinned, so it can't take the rook. So black would lose the queen and lose the game. Ivanov, being a gentleman, didn't need to see that, and so resigned. Again, I ask you, when you review this game, bear in mind how the pawns were used to facilitate white's attack, particularly the move h4 and the move c4, which dislodged the black knight from its perch on d5.